For more on the killing of Boris Nemtsov, we're joined by Jeremy Kinsman. He's the former Canadian ambassador to Russia and joins me by Skype from California. So, sir, what was your reaction when you learned of Nemtsov's murder?
Well, first of all, that I had lost a friend, that Russia had lost one of the most promising, attractive voices in that period that was so hopeful when it was transiting from communism to democracy. Nemtsov was a terrific guy, very educated, a doctorate in nuclear physics. He became a remarkable motivator. He was the most popular man in Russia about 16, 17 years ago, and as one of your earlier speakers said, was slated probably to succeed Boris Yeltsin, but the 1998 financial crisis sidelined him and other democratic reformers who became basically distrusted because of the deep slide in the Russian economy and standard of living. So I miss him as a guy, and I miss him as that voice. His voice hadn't been heard in Russia in recent years because he was again sidelined by being forbidden time on Russian state-controlled television. But you know, he labored on. He wasn't just an anti-Yeltsin, anti-Putin activist. He was an anti-corruption activist. He was a protagonist of inclusiveness in Russian society. All of the things which have been marginalized, as he was, by the divisive politics that we have seen under one-man rule. I don't know who did this. I think it's a tragic thing for Russia. Yeah, it could have been jihadist because he was big-time hostile to the Charlie Hebdo killings. He was Jewish, though that in Russia, at least in my day in Russia, wasn't of any importance one way or another. But there are nutty people. There are nutty, super patriotic people. Above all, what happened, it was the culture of intimidation, aggression, and hatred that prevails in Russia today. And let's hope that out of his death comes a wake-up call that Russians who are essentially good people are going to rally to the best of what they can be, rather than behaving in the way they are.
Let me ask you this, sir. I know you say you don't know who did this. Of course, I don't know who did this either, but it just seems interesting to me, and I'm wondering if you agree, that the day before there was going to be this anti-Putin march, the day before we were expected to hear some information from Nemtsov that would directly implicate Russia and Putin in the war that is going on in Ukraine, that just hours before all of this is said to happen, he's murdered, right, steps away from the Kremlin. Doesn't that make you think that it's possible, if not probable, that Vladimir Putin himself is behind this?
No, I think that's really not that. We should drop that kind of language. And incidentally, if he were going to do it, he wouldn't have done it steps away from the Kremlin. But I don't think it was him. I think it's a culture that he is to some extent responsible for shaping and for motivating. But actually who it was, it's going to be murky. It's very bad for him. Russia looks terrible because of this. The culture of violence is so revealed. And all of the facts that you detailed about the march, which was scheduled this weekend, make it seem as if it were taking out an opponent. And by the way, I mean, it may have been taking out an opponent by people who are acting on their own under the mania that of patriotism, of hyper-patriotism that Putin has spawned. But I don't think it was directed by Putin, no.
Why do you think it's bad for Putin that Nemtsov has been killed? Why would it be bad for him?
Well, because it's an example of what has been happening in Russia. That a guy who is an opponent in a perfectly what we would consider reasonable framework of opposition and search for transparency is face down on a bridge, killed. That's not a good ad for Putin's Russia, is it?